my name is King Lam, and this is Russell Kirkwood. And today our guest is William Chang. He's a computer specialist who's here to tell us about computer animation. He's a computer consultant who works for an advertising agency. So, Russ?
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
What exactly is computer animation?
Well, what is computer animation? Computer animation is basically a technique where you can use personal computers to do the job that professional animators used to do in, like, you know, when you watch cartoons on your Saturday mornings, or when you watch, like, say, a Disney movie, or any kind of animation. Basically, you're getting the computer to create a series of images for you, and then you can have it play out whether through the computer screen or through, say, videotape or film. Basically, there's two kinds of computer animation, one of which we're going to talk about. The first kind is 2D animation, which is what you would have, say, single square pictures of things coming across the screen, or, say, cartoon characters walking, talking, doing actions on the screen. We're not going to talk about that today, I think, and that's not really my main interest. There's another branch of computer animation, which is unique to the computers, which is called computer 3D animation. And basically, you get the computer to understand a 3D environment where you can assign shapes, lights, position of the camera, and it will draw the picture for you as if those objects really did exist. And that, I think, is a new field that you're starting to see in TV, in the movies, and in a lot of computer games right now. It's being used very, very much.
Okay, that's very interesting. How is computer animation used nowadays in business, and whatever?
Oh, it's in any kind of field where people need to visualize things. Say, for example, off the top of my head, the most obvious thing is that when you watch television, you know, for say, station announcements, for introductions to movies and special programming, for commercials and special effects in Hollywood movies, you see computer animation being used all over the time. I mean, like, if I can, well, the most famous examples recently, I guess this past year, has been what you've seen in Jurassic Park, for example, where if you notice that they used puppets, for example, animated animatronic puppets for, like, some of the close-ups. But then, for example, in the scenes where you see dinosaurs running across, like, a savanna, or a full-size dinosaur where you don't see, like, where's the wires, where's the props, where's the, you know, puppeteers, all that was generated by computer. The designs, the shapes, the movements were all put in by the computer. If you've seen Terminator, you've seen similar stuff as well. If you've seen any of the Listerine commercials on TV, basically you see this little bottle swinging around and through the jungle, or shooting arrows through Sherwood Forest. That's all done on computers. It could never have been done with that kind of realistic look using hand puppets or using traditional animation techniques. Other kinds of applications, besides just using for TV for entertainment purposes, has been, say, for example, medical imaging in the field of education. For example, when people need to investigate how to understand properly the structure of bone and muscle and tissue, people have been using computer animation to sort of, like, show them positions and points of view that would normally not be possible. Say, for example, if you wanted to, say, look at a blood clot through, say, the blood clot's point of view inside a blood vessel. Another use of computer animation is for forensic legal purposes, where you can recreate accidents. How a car hits on the side of a road and falls into a ditch, or how a person steps on a faulty piece of stairway and falls off. Or it also has uses for, say, architecture as well. If an architect needs to sell an idea to a client and they don't want to go to the trouble of designing a small little miniature, then they want to give the client an idea of what it would look like to walk through a living room or walk through the lobby, which normally wouldn't be possible unless you had already built the building. You can do that in computer animation. Okay. And aside to that also, there's, if anybody out there has been familiar with any of the video games released these last couple of years, so the big thing now is that they use 3D animation to make these game simulations or game experiences more lifelike. If anybody has been playing around with, say, CD-ROM games, or a lot of flight simulators, or a lot of adventure games, they're using 3D animation now to make the experience more realistic and more enjoyable for the PC enthusiast. And for myself right now, I currently use my 3D animation talents for nonprofit organizations and doing promotional videos for them, and also for my own enjoyment as a hobby, just learning more and more techniques and getting better at my craft.
Oh, very good. Could you explain to us how you learned about all this and how how somebody else may be able to learn about computer animation?
Traditionally, it's a lot like learning other things on the computer. You can go to class for it, and there are several colleges that actually offer classes. They call them, if you look for a program that offers them in what they call multimedia development, and 3D animation is usually a big part of that. But if you can't find a school like that, it's always good to hook up with somebody who's already involved with it, or you do what I did, which is basically I bought computers, read a lot of magazines, and bought a lot of books. There's two ways you can approach 3D animation. You can approach it as a developer, and a developer is basically somebody who uses a computer to design programs that will create the animations. That's very, very technical and requires years of study and being very good at programming. Which I guess most people aren't really. I'm not much of a programmer either. I'm more of a user. Basically, I go out and I purchase software programs that have been designed by developers. And I go out and I buy tutorial videotapes, and from computer stores I buy books on computer animation at a very large bookstore, and I teach myself. It's usually a combination of all those things that helps you with your technique. Did I answer your question? Or was that?
Yeah.
Or did you want me to be more specific about that?
So you didn't go into formal training for this.
No. I went to formal training, learning international politics at NYU. And
so how did you end up in computer graphics?
Basically, I had a lot of friends who were into computer animation, and they said, "Hey, Will, take a look at what I can do." And I said, "Well, that's very interesting. What can I do to get that?" He says, "Oh, you just need to get this machine, get this piece of software, and we'll show you how to do it unless you want to learn on your own."
That sort of leads us into our next question. I mean,
Right.
What sort of equipment would you go out and get, or what's available out there? Anybody who's interested in doing this sort of thing.
That's actually like opening a can of worms, because it really does depend on what your main audience target is. You can, if your main for myself, I'm basically going low end. Basically, I'm just shooting for home movies and say animation that's meant to be just displayed on computer. Later on in the video, you'll see stuff that I've done for videotape as well. There are basically 3 tiers of how much you can invest into computer animation. The top tier is the most expensive one, which is pursued by most people in Hollywood. Say, for example, what Spielberg used in purchasing $20,000 silicon graphic machines, which are like the high end, and they're sort of like the machines of choice by Hollywood. These are the machines that did these specs.
That's more for professional type.
For professional.
Users,
yeah. If your goal is to output to broadcast TV or for Hollywood movies, you would spend, I think, close to about roughly $20,000 for a silicon graphics machine. Silicon graphics makes the entry-level machine for about $5,000. But I would recommend, but once you start putting on all the equipment that you need, you wind up spending about $20,000 for hardware.
Right.
The silicon graphics machines are the machines of choice by Hollywood. This is what was used in Jurassic Park, in Terminator, in The Abyss, for those special people effects in Forrest Gump, for example, when they recreated that Washington, D.C. scene with all those people. They only got like a handful of people and just recreated them all over the place.
The reason for 20,000 is because of the speed, or?
Well, basically, yes, because it's we're talking about workstation class equipment, stuff that normally would not be affordable by an individual, but could be affordable by a small company. Okay. And then that's just kind of the hardware. Software for machines like that run close to about $6,000 to $7,000 per piece. And on top of that, there's basically 3 components: your hardware to run the software itself, which is where you design the shapes and the animation, and then comes the way you're going to output this. Are you going to output this to a film recorder? And actually, this studio probably would have a better idea of how much a film recorder would cost.